Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer at Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Friday, August 25th. What a week it was, with just one more week to go in August, and then we're on to a new month. First disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. As always, when I go through the technicals in these end of day videos, if you are not familiar with some of the technical studies that the major study that I use, which is the MarketWebs indicator, you can, number one, you could go to my pinned tweet on Twitter. There's a document that you can grab, and it will go over some of the terms that I go over, such as version point of control. Or there's a video that will be that is out, and you can either find that on my channel on YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or it will be in the description of this video. So just a heads up on that. And as we get started, and one of the things that I like to do on Fridays is also review some of the themes of the week, as well as the performance for the week. I feel like when we go through that process of reviewing what outperformed and what didn't, sometimes you could really find some themes that may help you going forward in that. So before I get to that review, let's talk about what happened today. So we had this Jackson Hole meeting today with all the central bankers. Why they do this meeting on Friday, I don't know. But bottom line is that there wasn't much that really changed. Let's see if I have this. There wasn't much that really changed in terms of where we were previously in terms of interest rate expectations to what happened afterwards. And this was in my Substack article this morning. I included a screenshot so that you can compare. But basically, for the September 20th meeting, so we still have a whole month before, essentially a whole month before we have another central bank meeting. And that's why these little updates, people do like them, even though the speeches are very short. But people really try to ascertain whether or not, what the Fed's view of what they're doing next. And I don't think that we really learned anything. This was pretty much what I thought was going to happen for the week, is that Powell and company, it's the same song and dance. I mean, we've been hearing this now for a while. It's that, we hear that the labor market is tight. There's some areas of inflation that are stubborn. They want to make sure that inflation, they think that they may have to raise interest rates more if inflation goes up. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just they're wording it different like every time. And I don't know if, I think if any of that language surprises you at this point. I don't know. Maybe you've been in a cave for the last 6 months, but it is what it is, right? I have to be a little bit sarcastic on these end of day videos just to lighten things up a little bit. But I mean, it's a bit of word salad. They're just rearranging the words, and I get it. It would be actually like more entertaining if they just came out and said, "Hey, we really don't have anything new to say. We're watching inflation, and we may have to make adjustments as we go along." But because there was no change in terms, this was exactly where it was. They're implying about a 21% chance of an interest rate hike for September. And next week, if we look ahead to what we're getting for next week, some of this data may determine whether or not they either increase interest rates one more time or they back off for the rest of the year. But the PCE deflator is the data point that I'm referring to. I think out of all the data that comes out next week, I think that'll be the most important. I think you even heard Powell mention PCE deflator today. So 0.2 is what they're expecting for the monthly change, and that we'll get that on the last trading day of the month, which is Friday. Right, another Friday data point. Well, I think it will be won't get as much attention as what today did, but the one thing that moved up a little bit was September. I think it was 56 basis points, and it's up to 63. So that was the one story of the day. There was some more. Really what I called this week was a turbulent week. I thought today was kind of, to use that adjective again, I thought today was a little bit turbulent. I thought the small caps looked like they might be breaking down. It looked like we were starting to head down again, like we did yesterday. And the difference, I think, is that when people saw the market going down today, they were like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like yesterday was more of a surprise and caught more people off guard. Sometimes the market likes to do that to keep everybody off guard. But that was more that move, and especially like towards the end of the day, that last leg lower, I think caught some people off guard, and perhaps some 0-day options, had an effect on that. Maybe just some speculators expecting that, thinking that we're going to close on the lows, but that was right where our support level was going to get to, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But the one other thing that I thought was interesting today on Friday was just there's a lot of deals that were deals or possible deals. You heard about BlackBerry. You heard about Sentinel-1. There may be a buyer interested in that stock. ABCM, which is a biotech company, there may be a rival bidder from what I heard. And on the downside, Rite Aid, which I'm not sure if they confirmed that story, that they may be filing for bankruptcy, and then Twinkies may get a buyout too. So Hostess. So interesting to see all that activity on a Friday. A couple of things before I go into the technicals for the day that I thought were notable is bonds. Still kind of hanging in there. Bonds gained for the week. I do have that number, which is right here. Bonds TLT was up 1.6% for the week. Right, so that's how bonds finished for the week. I'll go over the small caps, which had a recovery. In terms of the indices, all SPY, Qs, diamonds, they were about the same today, up about 0.75%. So let me go through some of these numbers. And if I didn't say it already, the VIX was down pretty decently, down about 9%, but that's usually the case once you have such a widely anticipated event. So let me start with those bonds first. Right, I always like to start there. Here's what TLT looks like on the weekly chart. I mean, it's hanging in there, or excuse me, the 30-year bond futures right at the bottom, closed right at the bottom of value. We talked about this earlier in the week that we did bounce off of this version point of control. Somebody asked me in one of my videos this week, does price still remember this? Oh yeah, it does. It doesn't matter how long ago the version point of control is. That is where there was a heavy amount of volume, even though if it's going back, a year, 2 years ago, it still becomes relevant. And if you don't think it's relevant, you could see, for example, that's exactly where this bounced. And note that we took out the lows of last year and then had the bounce. So again, nice to see, hopefully it's the beginning of the bounce. I think if you're for equity bulls, they would want to see this carry above the 20-day moving average. For now, it's above the 5-period moving average. So that's the first step when something's been trending down for a while. And we'll have to pay attention to that next week. I also like to look at TLT. They are different maturities that you've got in between 30-year bond futures and TLT. The duration is different there, but this also made a bounce and got above the 5-period moving average, but not the 20-period moving average, right? And here's the weekly value area as well for TLT. Notice that held. So these things are they're holding on for now. So we'll see how that continues. That might be almost a bullish engulfing candle for the week. So let me talk about let me get to the equities. So first of all, now that we have a full week of data, we can look at the weekly chart, and I'll tell you, this doesn't look that bad, right? In regards to everything that you've been hearing and the 50-day moving average and overhead supply, these are all things that I've been saying too, by the way. I'm guilty of that as well, but we are above value for the year. And even if we continue to go down a little bit further to the downside, 42.57 is your support level for S&P futures. If you want a SPY level, I will give that to you as well. That's a little bit closer. Again, a little bit different volume profile there, but that's 430.43. Let me go back to S&P futures. right? And let's look at the weekly chart. So again, excuse me, let's look at the daily chart. So a little bit different than that weekly chart, right? Definitely we got rejected and we reversed, right? That was the title of my article, my video yesterday. That level to watch on the upside is 44.8875. That coincides with the 50-day moving average. It's amazing. Sometimes the valuaries will do that, right? The 50-day moving average sometimes really comes into play with either a bottom of value resistance, right, which is what we have here, or support that sometimes we come down to the top of value and the 50-day moving average is there. So I went through, I think, a couple times this week about some scenarios that could happen. One of the scenarios that I said is that we might come back down and test this low, or we might come in and make a higher low. So far, it looks like a higher low. But we don't know yet if this is going to be, if you're going to see some type of a double bottom. It's really too early, or a W pattern, right? All of these things are in play, but you need more information, right? A lot of these patterns, you won't know what they are until it's afterwards. But yeah, I mean, I think that's somewhat positive. Did we take back any of these things that we needed to, right? That kind of give you a sense of more strength, like the 5-period moving average? Nope, we didn't do that. So all this is kind of to be continued, right? And it's because I don't think you could really hang your hat on any of this. I mean, it's a small positive that we held last week's lows, but you're going to need some more information. And when you're below the value area for the month, let me just say this so that, I think it's important to have this perspective. But if we are below value for the month and you're below value, you're below the 50-day moving average, right? And you're below the 20-day moving average and the 5-period moving average, that is a position of weakness. It is not a position of strength. And we've been talking about that a lot. We know also breadth has been horrible this month, right? We need to see that improve more than just one day. I think we had one day this week where it was particularly strong. Now, keep in mind, and also put these things in perspective. As I said, the weekly chart does not look bad, and we're still above the 200-day moving average, but we just don't know if we're past the worst of what we've seen so far, right? We could still see some more volatility, right? I will go to the Qs chart in just a second, but I mentioned volatility, right? Here's what the VIX looks like. Again, it's kind of, I don't think there's any major signal here yet. We're still kind of hanging around this, between the 15 to 18 level in the VIX. Well, if this kind of moves back further down, I think that would be a good sign. But today could be the start of that. The VVIX, on the other hand, was very good. VVIX was, this is not showing. Again, this is the like the second derivative of volatility. This is the volatility of the VIX itself, right? And that's actually moving down. So that may be a good sign. All right. Let's go over to next to the Qs chart, right? Same. You're going to find like some similarities here. Obviously this has gone up more so than the S&P this year, but notice that you're kind of finding support. Was this the strongest candle in the world? No, it wasn't. But, and the body of this candle is just an inside. So again, we need more information, right? I know everybody wants to have the information at hand to say, oh, this is good, or sometimes this is bad. But I'll tell you, like, this is just where we need more. You need more information, right? Patience is the key here, right? And when we get those, when we get more signals, then we will get more aggressive. But until then, this is more of a sit on hands type market in terms of swing trading. Right? Also, I reviewed that in yesterday's video. Talked about how this is more of a day trader's market. Right? So same thing here. The price got very close to that 5-period moving average, a little bit too close to call for my taste. But again, this is prices below the value area, below the 50-day, 20-day, 5, and right at the 5-period moving average. Possibly a higher low, but we're also below value. Now, also, we've got one more week of August, right? And then we can kind of look at this developing value area. So this is not set in stone, and this will change, but it will be interesting a week from now what it's going to tell us about if we're going to open up inside the September value area or if we're going to open up below. If we open up below value come September, again, that's a position of weakness, right? Now, here was the, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't review these two things. So let me start with the Qs, right? So this is not to, like I said, this didn't tell us much, right? But on the 1 hour chart, sometimes you do get the clues, right? And notice where we held, right? And again, this was too close to call at the end of the day yesterday. We closed right around there. But we did bounce a little bit, turbulent again, but all kinds of back and forth price action. But we held where we needed to, complete round trip, by the way, from entering the value area to finding support. And yes, it's so far it's a higher low, and we'll see if we can maintain that. But the value areas told us a lot for the week. There was tons, there was some great and it really depends on how disciplined a trader you are. But if you go back to the skews, right, you could have bought that low if you wanted to off the virgin point of control last week, right, and set your stop here. And this was a great place to like either the top of value, or if you wanted to stretch it and try to get that virgin point of control, like you got everything that you were looking for in terms of a roadmap. So the indicator, right, the MarketWebs indicator provided some beautiful information for us. All right, IWM, the wild card, as I've been calling it. So sideways as hell, right? I mean, this has just been, there's been traps all over the place. This is a very sideways looking trend this year. I thought that this was going to break for the day. It's been kind of hanging around this 200-day moving average. Notice, we'll see if this is a false breakdown. It's too early to tell that. Why? Because we didn't get above the 5-period moving average. So you could guess and you could speculate all you want, but it's just too early to come up with some type of a conclusion here because this did not retake anything. It did hold the 200-day moving average, which small positive, but really didn't do anything on the upside, right? And the 1 hour chart really told us that this was kind of an area of weakness this week. Hung out all week around the bottom of value, except for when everything was rallying. All right, so that's the index wrap up. Here's the performance. So I think I covered all these themes for the week, for the day. Software outperformed. Workday had some nice numbers. Cyber Group acted pretty well this week. Let's get to that performance for the week, so you could see for yourself. But SPY did finish up for the week, up 80 basis points. The Dow underperformed for the week. Small caps were flat. Qs, believe it or not, did outperform for the week. They were up 1.5%. International markets were up slightly. Bonds rallied 1.6. Gold did the same. Even the dollar was up again for the week. Not huge, but up 80 basis points, and growth outperformed value. Here's where it kind of gets a bit more interesting when you look at the sectors. Believe it or not, gold miners were the best performing. Also, Chinese internet names. Remember, that was one of the reasons, and I don't think it got that much attention last week, but we had a lot of volatility in the overnight sessions because of a lot of China news that was coming out. That actually was one of the best performing groups this week, up 2.6%. And even tech and semis, with the volatility that they saw, were both up over 2% for the week. All right, and then there's a couple other areas that were above. The worst by far group was retail. Man, there were some nasty reports that came out this week. Not every retail company was bad, but certainly there was a lot of names such as Dick's Sporting Goods, such as Foot Locker, that really got hit pretty hard. Energy did not perform well. Oil services were down 2.2% for the week. The XLE ETF was also down 1.4%, right? And then, there was a decent amount of areas that in the international that were up over 2% for the week. So there was some outperformance in some of those areas for the week. I'm just going to go over just a few charts with you guys, individual names, but just some names that. So first of all, I was going to mention breadth really quickly. Right. So even today, like there was some standout names, but these are 4-week new highs in the S&P. Notice only 10 of them. Notice what happened on the 4-week new low side. Once again, just hugely many more names breaking down than going up. So again, that tells me that, we're not out of the woods with 74 names that made new 52-week lows. In terms of, again, that's just the S&P. I'm not going to go into Nasdaq names. Here's new 52-week highs. The couple interesting names in there, right? And new 52-week lows. There was 9 of those, right? I think CPRT actually had a stock split, so that may be off in the numbers there from Bloomberg, but there you go. That's the breadth that we're seeing right now. So I was just going to talk about a couple names that I thought really kind of hung in there. Didn't have volatility like the overall market on depending on what day it was, but Celsius really strong after earnings, right? Again, it just has been methodically, the little dips have been bought. It hasn't really been raging this week, but it's already made a big move so far this year. This is another name that people really seem to like, VRT, right? Ugly looking candle yesterday, but didn't break any of like the short-term trend, and it really had a nice day today, up 7%. Tesla, very interesting, kind of held in there. I mean, this name really got smoked for the first couple of weeks of for the first couple of weeks of the month. So really, had nice outperformance. Would like to see it get back above the 20-day moving average. And again, it just went deeper than a lot of other names in terms of how it declined earlier in the year. BRBR, right? This is the maker of, I've mentioned this name a couple times this week. This is the maker of the Power Bar, right? So they also make protein shakes. Really nice performance this week, really nice breakout. ISRG, interesting. I mentioned this name on Twitter. I think it was either Monday or Tuesday night. And sure, like the very next day, we saw January 24 calls go up. I like the spot of this. What I wanted to review, because I talked about the daily chart and the price finding the 200-day moving average support. But look, it did close above its value area for the year. So you got a nice level to watch, right? It was 295. If it closes back below in here and maybe even below the 200-day moving average, then I would say, move on to another name. But for now, it's showing some resilience. And then how about this name, right? This was a name that we talked about last week, right? This is FSLY. I have to say that this was a really nice performance by FSLY this week. After earnings, it kind of settled in a little bit, and then a push to new highs. I traded this name this week. I did take it off yesterday, but I was impressed with this up 7.8% for the day, and that did get above. I thought it might stumble on these previous highs after earnings, but it made it through. And the next stop I see on the daily chart is $25. So not bad at all. One other name too, ABCM. I think I did mention this one in the beginning of the video. I would watch this name next week. There's some speculation that they might get bought out. All right, guys, that's it for the weekend video. I will put some, every weekend what we do for members is I put together a watch list, right? I put names like, some names, of course, like I may be wanting to get into for trades. Other names I just want to really kind of keep tabs on, right? Because sometimes in the beginning of the week, we don't know what we're going to get. So one of the things I talk about every once in a while is that, having a plan. And it's been frustrating some days where you kind of set up a plan, you do the research, right? And then all of a sudden, like, the price action doesn't support, some of those trade setups. That's just part of the process, right? And you have to try not to get frustrated with that. But, I don't mind putting out pretty, a well-defined watch list. And of course, you could see that I add names through the week, right? But, these were the standout names, right? This was a name I put out on Sunday, the BRBR, VRT. I added that name, I think, on Monday. And a couple other names. PWR just pulled back a little bit too much, but and then there's the FSLY as well. So again, these are based on triggers, right? Using the volume, using the value areas. I'm just not looking for the performance for today, but I'm looking to make sure it gets over a significant resistance level, and that's where we come up with the trigger level. All right, guys, that's it for the weekend. And if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, check us out at tribecatradegroup.com. You can get half off your first month. I think that coupon code that I have someplace for you guys is TTG 2023. Again, that's only for new members. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll see you back on Monday.